My sense of time has gotten worse uh, in these recent days, and I am relapsing from the lessons I learned. And this is just maybe more of a reminder of myself and a confession to myself. You know, after my parents died, I had a realization, kind of an awakening, that angels don't raise us human beings. But my mother came rather close, and my mother had far less of an ego than my father, far more understanding. She did things that I didn't agree with within raising me. I'm not going to go into that, but she was a very kind and caring person. Probably the most kind, caring person that I've ever known. And my father was not, although I believe that he could be reasoned with. He was a bit of an egotist, and he did some things that I disagreed with, and I believe to a degree they put me at disadvantage with his behavior. And, I always got in the arguments I got into him was I wanted him to fess up to some of the things that he did. And when I look back on it, it was a waste of time. And now I see myself doing the same things online that I do with my father, trying to change people's opinion. And I believe that this happens with the woke and the Trump supporters, the red-pilled and the Black Lives Matter. They both believe that they have the high road. They both believe that they are morally superior. I still believe that the leftist establishment, the left controls the establishment, and there's a portion of them that are very vindictive, but that's not all of them. Those in power do seem rather vindictive and can be rather cruel and self-righteous. But so can I. Everything that a self-righteous leftist has done, or that I would accuse one of doing, I perhaps have done the same thing myself. Only our issues, only our ideologies were different, but our methods were both the same. So when I condemned that person, I was actually being a hypocrite. And that's not what I want to be. Because people who are prone to anger are often hypocrites. Because oftentimes they can dish it out, but they would never tolerate that behavior done to them. They would never want someone going off on them the way they go off on others. That was one of the big problems with my father. he would go off on people. And if you ever did it to him, he would absolutely throw a fit. And that is something I don't want to do. That is the kind of person I don't want to be. But I'm a work in progress. And I'm working through my emotions. They inform me. And I got to kind of be able to see my ego when it's out there and kind of like realize, am I speaking for myself, or am I speaking with regards to my ego? And I think a lot of people kind of come into that vein. They gain this knowledge, and they think nobody has heard what they've said, and they speak through their ego instead of perhaps being inquisitive and saying, this knowledge was brought to me. This is what I've seen. This is what studies have seen. And sometimes studies can be wrong. There was a long time where the Korean War dead, the American casualties was over 50,000. And now it's just above 30,000. I think it was 53,000. Now I think it's 32 to maybe 38,000. It's under 40,000. That I do know. So that is knowledge with numbers that we thought were very clear. That we thought, the government printed them out and they were there. And so, we don't just have to take the numbers of the Korean War, we shouldn't have taken those numbers at face value. And there are times where people get things wrong. And that is really hard to admit, when you've staked your ego on an ideology and it happens to be wrong, or you're misguided. People do change. And I have changed my outlook on things. And I've looked at things from a different perspective than before. And I hope to continue to grow as a human being, as a person, to the best of my ability. And I certainly want to have open conversations with people. And, I want them to give me their perspective and I'll give them mine. But I don't want this to be in a hostile environment. And again, I tend to believe now that we are not logical human beings, that we are social, not logical. And, I certainly have the desire to be with, people who think and who can give me knowledge, and perhaps I can give them knowledge, and vice versa. Because we're all struggling within this world, and we all go through loss. I kind of have a belief that almost getting into a religion that believes in, the scientific method and mathematics. And I could bring my parents through mathematical and scientific knowledge back to life, and we can kind of live again. I know that's a silly thing, but that is one of my wishes and kind of one of my dreams. And maybe it's not true. Maybe it's something that can't happen. But it is one of my thoughts and one of my hopes. And it may never happen. And perhaps when you die, you're dead and there's nothing else. And perhaps, maybe, there is an afterlife. That would be nice. However that afterlife happens, um, that if it's a place where you uh, meet your family members and your loved ones again, that would be something certainly to behold. I'm not a person that necessarily believes in the supernatural. And I'm thinking that there is a scientific explanation for these things. And there's, we're getting better at scientific, we're making scientific breakthroughs every day. And can we continue to make, scientific breakthroughs that not only makes us live forever, but brings back the people that we lost? Maybe that's a pipe dream, and maybe there are more problems with that than reality. It's just a thought that goes through my mind. And I certainly think of economics, just the simple parts of it, but they make sense to me. And I haven't heard any rebuttal that was intellectual that made sense to me. It was mainly on an emotional level. So, and like there are people that I like, the YouTubers that I like, and other things, and a lot of people, the dislike is not intellectual, it is often emotional response to them. And I think on average, that's not a good thing. There are people that I don't like, and I don't even, like I can have an emotional response, but I can also have an intellectual response to why I don't like their program. Particularly because I think sometimes they're so ideologically bent that they will be dishonest. And I do see that more with regards to YouTubers with the left than with the right. But human beings, by nature, I think, try to skew things in their direction and try to gain power any way they can. I, for one, will strive to be as authentic as I can, but I am human. And I perhaps am a creature of habit. I have broken some habits, but some habits are harder to break. And my ego is a hard habit to break. I have the urge to go online and just argue politics that go nowhere, that help no one. But it's my ego. I think that by doing, if I really think about it, I gain nothing. Some of the interactions that I get into with people, I gain nothing from it. It does me nor them any good. And when the only thing that comes out of it is conflict, I have to ask myself, what is the point? Even if you're right, if all you've done is created an enemy who doesn't like you, what have I done? What have I gained? If all I gain is an enemy, it's easy to gain enemies. It's hard to gain friends. It's easy to be in poverty. It's hard to gain wealth. Our species evolved in poverty. And how do we gain wealth and how do we gain friendships? Those are far harder to do than gaining enemies. It's easy to piss someone off and make them angry at you. It's easy to spout off an inflammatory opinion, even if you believe it to be true, or even when I believe it to be true. It doesn't do, if I'm just pissing a person off, it does no good. If my words just piss a person off, I'm not doing any good. And that's not what I want. I don't want to piss people off. I want them to either at least understand where I'm coming from as a thinking human being. Or we don't. If we don't have understanding, then, or if we can't come to any understanding, or a person cannot even articulate where I'm coming from or where they're coming from, then what's the point? And if both of us are filled with ego, how can we come to understand? How can two people who are filled with ego come to understanding? And perhaps I have to drop mine, and hopefully the other person will be, to a degree, willing to drop his ego. But if they're not willing to do that, and it's not, empathy and understanding are two-way streets. A person has to be willing to meet another person halfway and drop their ego and drop all this, because it does no good. And this is for me, this is no recommendation for other people. Other people, if they want to do that and it makes them feel good, go do it. But I'm going to strive to stop. I'm going to strive to keep my ego in check, because it does me no good. It gains me nothing. It makes no changes. I see things the way I see them, through my limited intellect and my limited knowledge. And if somebody has a better argument, I'm certainly willing to change that argument. But you have to convince me with the facts before that happens. And I hope people I hope I can meet people who have mutual respect. And that's one of my main wishes out there, is to meet people with mutual respect and mutual understanding. And maybe, just maybe, we can change things for the better, even if it's between two human beings, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, 6, 7, 10. The number goes on and on. We can change things for the better as human beings. And we can talk as human beings with the least amount of ego as possible. It's just a thought. Anyway, I think I've run out of things to say. And I know that I'm probably not too many people listen, and that's a strike for the ego, and maybe I'm boring. But I do hope, and man, my lips are smacking. My lips are really dry today. But I do hope that people get somewhat of a listen to this, and perhaps they have suggestions to how I can improve, and perhaps I can have suggestions to how other people can improve. Because and I've heard that practice makes improvement. You know, I wanted to say this, and I'll end on this. You know, Debbie Daly, I really improved my skills with regards to her, and also with Mr. Solutions. I didn't like him at times because I had a puffed up ego. And, you know, he was a far more skilled debater and master debater. God, that sounds rather nasty, but he was at least a brown belt intellect, maybe even a black belt intellectual, and I was just a yellow belt, and I was no match for him. I think I've gotten better, but I don't think that I'm any match for that man, even today. I still know, I still believe what is right, and what is wrong. And there's still beliefs that I have, that I hold true to, that I wish and would like society to be. And I may have no control over it. It's just a wish. It's just a thought. It's just an opinion. It's nothing personal. Anyway, this has been Brian with Transparency and Merit. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and visit our website at transparencyandmerit.com. Thank you for listening. I kind of rambled.